Alright, hey everybody, so plans for the end of the year. Obviously, we're in the last few days of 2018. There's a couple of movies that have come out recently that I want to review. Those main ones being Spider-Verse, Mary Poppins, Aquaman, and Bumblebee. Into the Spider-Verse was really good. I kind of get the sense I didn't love it, like it's my favorite Spider-Man of all time, like everyone else is thinking. I still prefer a couple other Spider-Man movies, but Into the Spider-Verse was awesome. Go see it. And then Aquaman and Bumblebee, I haven't actually gotten a chance to see yet, so I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a Mary Poppins review right now. It's going to be a pretty quick one because I want to then get to my top 10 list of my favorite movies of this year. So look out for that before the end of the year, but I'll review Mary Poppins and I'm going to try to review Aquaman and Bumblebee after the new year. Maybe I'll be able to squeeze those in before January, but I wouldn't count on it. With all that being said, let's talk about Mary Poppins. So Mary Poppins Returns is the sequel to Mary Poppins, which came out in 1964. It's a huge hit. It's a Disney classic. I love the movie. As a kid, it was always one of those movies that was on, but I was never really like paying attention to, but I knew all the scenes from it. But after Saving Mr. Banks came out a few years ago, and I watched that, and then I rewatched Mary Poppins, it's now one of my favorite Disney movies. It's also one of those movies, kind of like The Wizard of Oz, that really should just never be touched. That being said, Disney decided to make a sequel because they're rebooting, remaking, and sequelizing everything nowadays. We do not have Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke anymore, but now we have Emily Blunt and lin-manuel Miranda. Emily Blunt plays Mary Poppins, and she goes to visit the family of Michael Banks, who's now played by Ben Whishaw. His family has fallen on hard times, so Mary Poppins comes to his house to look after his kids, as well as look after Jane and Michael again. I put this movie in my most anticipated movies of the year video that I did at the beginning of 2018, and I wasn't sure how that was going to shake out for me. I was kind of worried of getting stung in the butt, like a Beauty and the Beast situation, where I thought it was fine, but it was unnecessary, didn't need to be made, really just carbon copied the original. And so how was this movie? I'll say this. It is pretty much a carbon copy of the original. It didn't need to be made, but I still really liked it. As far as Emily Blunt and lin-manuel Miranda goes, I'll say this. There's no replacing Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke. However, if you had to replace those two, Emily Blunt and lin-manuel Miranda are pretty awesome. I want to talk about Emily Blunt for a second though. I've never really seen Emily Blunt in such a cheery light. I've seen her in like Edge of Tomorrow, A Quiet Place, Sicario, a lot of those movies are really dark, but I thought she played Mary Poppins perfectly. She has a great balance of the whimsical nature of Mary Poppins, while also very much getting her stern nature down. Like her first scene when she reunites with Jane and Michael, right away I felt like Mary Poppins from 1964 was back. Or in the movie time, it's like the 1910s versus the 1930s, but whatever. And then lin-manuel Miranda was really good too. I was a little concerned he wasn't gonna fit in this movie. I think it's because he's just been so popular recently and he's so recognizable. I thought it was just gonna feel like lin-manuel Miranda playing lin-manuel Miranda, but not actually being in 1930s England. But no, he was rock solid in this movie. Again, not as good as Dick Van Dyke, but still really awesome. I thought Michael's kids did a good job too. They've reminded me of Jane and Michael from the first movie. They weren't really that annoying. They felt like normal kids. They talked like normal kids. And then Ben Whishaw and Emily Mortimer as Jane and Michael Banks, both really good. They might have been my favorite part of the movie. You also get the sense that they are Jane and Michael Banks from the original movie, just grown up 20 years. There's a couple things in there that I felt was a little forced with the characters. For example, Jane is like a work activist in this movie, just like how her mom was a women's rights activist in the first movie, which is fine. It just felt like it was a little unnecessary. And then same thing with Michael. He works at the bank just like his dad worked at the bank, which again is fine. I just kind of wish they did different things. But continuing on with what I liked about the movie for a second, all the animation scenes in this movie I thought were really awesome. A lot of the dance scenes, a lot of the music, they all have a really good energy about them. I've heard some criticism saying that people think the music in this movie is very forgettable. Maybe, but this movie's been out, what, a week and a half? The original Mary Poppins has been out for 54 years. Yeah, clearly one's gonna have much more memorable songs than the other one. I feel like this movie, I did come out of the movie humming a lot of those tunes, and I want to go back and listen to some of the songs from this movie. So I feel like in a couple years, people are gonna start to warm up to the soundtrack in this movie more. As far as what I didn't like about the movie, there's two characters I feel like didn't need to be in the movie. Meryl Streep's character is in this movie for one scene, and she's pretty good. And what's interesting is the more the scene went on, the more I warmed up to it. However, I will say this movie is a hair too long, and so if I had to cut one thing out of the movie, it would probably be her scene. And then you have Colin Firth in the movie, and this isn't really a spoiler, it's in the first 20 minutes of the movie, but Colin Firth is ultimately the villain of this movie. And he's fine, and I really like Colin Firth, but Mary Poppins doesn't need a villain. The first movie didn't really have a villain. Mary Poppins was ultimately about a father reconnecting with his kids and reconnecting with his childhood. And the bank was in the movie, but no one at the bank was really the villain of the movie. There's also a scene that ties in with Colin Firth's character in some of the animated sequences, which again, really felt unnecessary. And so there's a couple times in there I feel like they tried to modernize Mary Poppins by adding in a couple action scenes, a couple chase scenes, a main villain, and I really don't feel like you needed any of that. And then yes, this movie is very much a carbon copy of the original Mary Poppins Poppins. All the songs in this movie, while I do really like them, they're all very clearly stand-ins for, okay, this is the Step in Time song, this is the Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious song, this is the Jolly Holiday song. So the movie is very derivative, and I can see a lot of people having issues with that. I've had issues with that in past Disney movies, like the Beauty and the Beast movie that came out last year. But there's something just in the way that this movie was put together. I felt this was more along the lines of like A Force Awakens, where it didn't feel like a cynical ripoff of the original. It felt more like it was a love letter and a tribute to the original Mary Poppins. I thought the spirit of the original Mary Poppins really carried over, minus a couple things like the chase scenes, like the villain. And there's a cameo in this movie, which isn't really a secret, but I won't say who it is just in case. That scene was the best scene of the movie. I cried. It was awesome. In the end, I really liked Mary Poppins Returns. Still didn't need to be made. Still pretty much just copies the original, but I thought it was done with enough love and care that I really didn't mind being back in the world of Mary Poppins for 2 hours. It harkened back to that old age of Disney live action like the original Mary Poppins, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, where they were able to take the real world, add enough whimsical elements into it though, to make it feel like really its own thing. Really, it's a Disney thing. I don't really know of another studio that's really been able to pull that off. And Disney in recent years hasn't been able to pull that off either, actually. But this movie did pull that feeling off, so I'm really grateful for that. So, Mary Poppins Returns. Have you guys seen it? Let me know what you think of it down in the comments. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys liked it, you can click subscribe and check out some of my other videos. And I'll catch you guys next time.